The Switch 2. The Switch 2. More like switch to a cheaper hobby. For those out of the loop, Nintendo released their first big deep dive over the Switch 2 last week, showing off some cool new games and the like, but much like my reaction to seeing the reveal of the PS5 Pro last year, I'm not super impressed with what I saw. The Switch 2 is exactly what it sounds like, a sequel to the Switch, a console that really does speak for itself. It's an incredibly popular device because it served as a monumental stepping stone for portable console gaming. Despite what little operating power it had when it released, it still managed to pump out some incredibly memorable titles since its release in 2017. It was and still is a monumentally successful console, so a sequel to it only makes sense. All they have to do is take what the Switch did well and give it the old Nintendo sequel spin. And in true Nintendo fashion, not every edition is a good one. In fact, I would venture to say that the negatives outweigh the positives here for not just one reason, but many. After watching the presentation, I am confident in my assessment that Nintendo has completely lost the plot and are clueless with the Switch 2. They have betrayed the concept of the Switch and will hurt consumers with their obscene choices that are only going to be a sticking point for a lot of people. But you know who isn't clueless? Me! And you can help me stay not clueless by giving the channel a like and subscribe down below, because it means you get more long-form analysis and discussion videos to watch and enjoy in the future. Sounds like a great deal to me. Anyway, let's take a deeper dive into the Switch 2. Let's discuss the positives and negatives of the reveal, starting with the positives. Clearly, the Switch 2 is still a truly portable device, which is the one thing that sets it apart as a console in today's space. If you ask me, this is why I and so many other people bought one in the first place. It's a really great concept, and the console's portability gave it a massive leg up in the console race ever since. So much so that other companies have been trying to replicate that success. PC companies like Valve, Asus, and Lenovo have been pushing forward a brand new market of portable PCs, and I think we have Nintendo to thank for that. Sony has also recently gotten into the portable home console market in some respects with the PlayStation Portal, but in order to use it, you need to have it connected to an existing PS5, so its use is limited. And who knows what the hell Microsoft is doing over there with their "this is an Xbox" campaign, but your phone is an Xbox now, so close enough. The Switch was a big deal, and it still is. Nintendo is gonna ride that portability train until the end of time, I imagine, because it's what sets them apart from the competition. You know what else sets them apart from the competition? Their reliance on hardware that's nearly a decade old, that's what. Keeping with tradition, the Switch 2 is working with some obscenely old technology, but at least it's better than Switch 1. While we don't have any official specs yet, the Switch 2 will be capable of reaching resolutions up to 4K and 120 frames per second, which is a big deal considering Sony and Microsoft were able to do this back in 2016. Well, better late than never, right? If anything, Nintendo games deserve the 60 FPS 4K treatment. These are games consistently held back by their hardware, so when they are given the chance to shine in all of their glory at amazing resolutions and frames, they really shine. Breath of the Wild and the recent Xenoblade X re-release are two games that still look amazing, but were sadly held back by their console of origin. With the Switch 2, they will potentially be given new leases on life with much better performance. But just so we're clear, just because the Switch 2 is stronger than the predecessor doesn't mean more demanding games will perform as well as they do on rival consoles. Just because the Switch 2 can hit 120 frames and 4K resolution doesn't mean that it will. Are we clear? Alright, let's keep going. Nintendo has never been on the cutting edge of technology. That's fair. But what they make up for performance, they deliver in games that consistently deliver fun and unique experiences you just can't find anywhere else. Say what you want about them, but Nintendo makes some damn good games. Really, really damn good games. What they showcased during their presentation last week with Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza look like great fun. The idea that Mario Kart now takes place in an open world with the players having to drive between the courses in an open world is such a cool concept and reminds me of classic Need for Speed and Burnout titles. It feels so right, and I'm happy to see the series move in a new and innovative direction after it's been so stagnant for such a long time. And Donkey Kong Bonanza looks to be a truly unique take on Donkey Kong, a franchise that hasn't seen a mainline entry from Nintendo R&D proper for, God, I don't know how long. Mr. Kong getting a day job as a miner, but using his big meaty claws as this primary digging tool is awesome, and the level of destruction and interaction showed in the trailer is really something to behold. I'm sure they're both going to be really fantastic, fun games in their own right, but are they, say, $80 worth of fun? Yeah, ooh, that's one hell of a catch. See, Nintendo being the groundbreakers they are, will start releasing their new AAA games at a standard price of $80. And although we don't have any confirmed pricing yet, it is being speculated that physical games could run upwards of $90 in price, which is, well, I think everyone has already made it abundantly clear what they think about it at this point. Nobody likes it, and we all know how Nintendo prices their games. Once they set a price, they do not budge on them. That $80 will stay $80 until that game is no longer on the shelf. That's the promise good old Ninty has kept alive for a long, long time, and I don't see them stopping anytime soon. It sucks even more now because, like, yes, we want developers to get paid for their hard work. Yes, video games are a hobby, but at what point does a hobby stop being for everyone and only for those who can afford it? All I'm saying is the $80 video game is not the win they think it is. It burns a lot of goodwill you have with your existing consumer base when you start charging them with prices like this, and it's only going to go up from here, I imagine. Speaking of games, I bought Breath of the Wild with my Switch way back in 2017, but hated how poorly the game ran. So I put it down until the day where I could play it again with better performance. Legally. So when they announced that certain Switch 1 games would play better on Switch 2, I got excited, until that damn caveat came in with a sucker punch straight to the gut.
If you already own the Switch games, you can upgrade to Nintendo Switch 2 editions by purchasing upgrade packs.
Upgrade your existing copy to a Switch 2 version for an additional fee. Here, respected player, pay $10 to play your 8-year-old game at a reasonable 60 FPS. You should be grateful. We didn't want to have to charge you for better frame rates, but we did. Next, we will give you the opportunity to pay for an online service that barely works. Oh wait, we already do that! Here's the thing. When you as a console maker are pushing cross-compatibility for your games so heavily when leading into the next console generation, it's a great idea to incentivize people to buy the new console by telling them their games will perform even better on the new one. It's been a thing ever since the release of the PS4 Pro and PS5 and Xbox Series X. It's not a new concept, but it's still fairly new to consoles. And Nintendo has decided to take the worst route possible by not rewarding consistent brand loyalty, instead charging for the privilege to play games at a frame rate they should have launched in. But that's only if a game is compatible with the Switch 2. Only certain Switch 1 games will be guaranteed to be compatible when arriving on Switch 2. Sorry about that, but who am I kidding, really? True cross-compatibility has been gone a long, long time. And to add insult to injury for the games, some of them won't even launch with the games even put on them. See, some games will release physically as game keys, which are basically flash drives that say you own a game, but will require you to download a 40 gigabyte file off the Nintendo eShop before you can even play the game you bought physically on a cartridge, probably for more than it would have been to buy digitally. So let me get this straight. Not only are physical games not really physical games, but they cost more too? This is Nintendo trying everything they can to incentivize people to not buy physical games. They want you to buy everything digitally. They're just not saying it. That's why the Switch 2 is launching with 256 gigabytes. You're gonna need that space when the game you bought at the store isn't actually stored on the cartridge. Look, I get it. It's 2025. We live in an era where you go to the store, you buy a game, and end up having to download a day one patch that completely rewrites the files of a 120 gigabyte game. But I guess we're now at a point where you can just go to the store to buy a game that doesn't actually have a game on it, just a key. So if that doesn't scream dystopian hellscape, I don't know what does. Because at any moment, Nintendo or a publisher could just remove said game from their digital servers. So when the Nintendo eShop for the Switch eventually closes down, you can say goodbye to that quote-unquote physical game you bought because you never really bought a game. You bought a key that you don't know when it will time out. It's truly disgusting, but we're only getting started on the negatives, buddy. What really bothered me were the features introduced for the Switch 2 that seem almost antithetical to the concept of portability. Yes, the console is still portable. That's what it's known for. But what I'm talking about are the features like Game Chat, the console's built-in Discord that lets you voice chat, video call, and stream games to your friends. This is a feature that doesn't make much sense on the go. With the inclusion of the webcam, that you have to buy separately by the way, it all but encourages you to stay hooked up to your TV, camera pointed at the couch, playing games with your friends. I'm sure it's a great feature for certain types of groups, but for someone like me who prefers to play long single-player RPGs, well, not so much. And the older I get, the less time I want to spend in voice chats with friends talking about nothing. I've got a life outside of the game console. I think it's a really cool feature, but it is once again something that's 8 years too late. It almost feels like a design remnant of the time we were all spent locked indoors during 2020, where the only real way we could see each other was behind a camera, which sucks. I really don't want to be reminded of that, and frankly, it feels very antiquated. 2 other systems have tried this whole couch-connected entertainment system idea before. Firstly was the iToy for the PS2 and PS3. Those were pretty much dead on arrival, to put it softly. Then we had the Kinect, which did not fare much better. It may have had a slightly larger install base, but it did not hit the audience like Microsoft thought it would. But what the Switch 2 is doing differently is not using the attachment as a primary gaming device, but more of a side attachment. But let's be real, it's just going to be a shitty 480p webcam made for a very, very specific audience of players. And who that audience is, I have no idea. But they thought it was worth the research and development to implement as a feature to give them good returns, so more power to them, I guess. The second feature that feels antithetical to the nature of the device is how the Joy-Cons can effectively be used as mice, requiring a hard surface to use consistently. See, I love the idea of this, a controller that doubles as a mouse. That's super cool in concept, and I'm sure it'll be great for strategy games and first-person shooters, as well as that new wheelchair basketball game that looks sick as hell. But this is again another feature built into the console that requires the player to be in a stationary location with a consistent platform to use in order to play. From my very limited exposure to the gimmick, the use case seems incredibly minuscule. Hell, maybe even non-existent. Let's frame all this with a hypothetical. I've got my Switch 2 in my hands. I'm lounging out on the couch like a champion, having a grand old time. Now, my game is telling me to unlatch my Joy-Con from the console to progress. So I sit up, bend forward over my coffee table, and start rolling my Joy-Con around the surface like a jackass before I can proceed. Again, this is all just a hypothetical, but what the inclusion of the mouse Joy-Con is telling me is that, does Nintendo want the Switch 2 to just be a PC? Like they're giving you off-brand Discord, they're giving you a webcam, they're giving you a built-in microphone with dynamic noise cancellation, and now they're giving you a mouse? What is all of this about? Who is this for exactly? Is Nintendo trying to capture the PC gaming market? Because I know PC gamers, they don't want the Switch to be Discord. They just want the Switch to play good Nintendo games. I don't know. This whole game chat thing makes no sense to me. And you won't even be able to use it unless you pay for their god-awful Nintendo Online service, which barely works. None of this makes any sense. Its inclusion all feels so incredibly half-baked, almost like it was included to help justify the $450 price tag. Yes, all of this for the console pricing out at $450 at launch. Now, this isn't even accounting for the brand new tariffs that have been introduced. So that $450 could easily balloon up to $550 or even $600 before launch. There's no telling what could happen. And that pricing is just for the console, because the free pack-in game we've become so accustomed to with Nintendo consoles since the Wii will now be a paid experience that shows you what the new Joy-Con controllers can do. What a joke. Do you, Nintendo, genuinely think that someone who just spent $450 or more on a console is going to want to pay another $30 to $40 on an interactive museum that shows you what a Joy-Con can do? Just go eat dirt. $450 for a console that does not come with a game. For a console that is presumably using technology from 8 years ago. For a console that is asking premium prices for not only games, but online services as well. Nintendo just freaking lost it. They had it all. They had it all in the palm of their hand, and then they say this is what you get. Pay for it or don't. We don't give a shit. We're going to make money hand over fist either way. Traditionally, consoles are usually sold at a loss, meaning the cost it takes to make a console is more than it costs to sell, and that loss in revenue is made up in game sales. But now I'm thinking, is the Switch 2 actually being sold at a loss? if it is presumably using tech from 8 years ago, how much profit are they making from a single $450 console? Who's to say, really? But we all know that if it's a loss or a profit per console, they are for sure going to make everything back with 20 million sales of Mario Kart World, all sold at a premium price tag of $80 per copy. It's funny, I was just getting comfortable with paying $70 for a new game. I only buy one new fully priced $70 game every other month or so, but $80? $80 is actually insane for a single game. And this is where I think Nintendo lost the plot. When the Switch launched, it was released at a price of $300. I think it was a very reasonable price for what it was. It needed to be reasonably priced because it wasn't just a new Nintendo console, but had the innards of a portable console. It needed to be capable of working well on the go, and the price had to coincide with that portable pricing. But it has not gone down in price since its release in 2017. Today, the console is still sitting pretty at a $300 price tag, but there are a few other alternative models to choose from depending on your price range and use case. The fact that the original model is still listed at a launch price is crazy to me. I get it, the Switch sells incredibly well, but the idea that the Switch 2 will launch at $150 more and will only be a marginal step up to what was released 8 years ago feels like, who is this for exactly? If you want people to move up, you're going to want to discount the Switch 1, but from what I'm seeing, they aren't and probably won't for a few more years to come. So just for the sake of analysis, let's do a cost breakdown. Let's say you wanted to get Mario Kart World and a Switch 2 on launch day and play it online, and to play Wind Waker when it launches on the GameCube Virtual Console. The game store is all out of the Mario Kart bundle and you really want the physical copy. The console itself is $450. A copy of Mario Kart World is $80. A premium Nintendo Switch Online subscription runs $50 for a full year and you can't buy it monthly. Add up tax for your purchase and you are feasibly spending upwards of $600 just to play this console you just bought. $600 for an experience that is in many ways worse than its contemporaries. If you ask me, that doesn't sound like a very good deal. I would call it an active waste of money at launch, assuming everything stays the same price it does, that is. So that's the Switch 2. All in all, a console that, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be made. In efforts to maintain relevance with a growing audience that would rather stay inside and behind a couch, it loses the appeal that made it so popular to begin with. Instead of pushing the affordability and portability of the console that makes it still so incredibly popular, it chooses to push that to the side and offer a more abstract experience for people that I'm not sure even exist. But hey, I got a quick question for you. What's $50 cheaper than a launch Switch 2, comes with the same 256 gigabytes, has comparable hardware, is readily available, and can play hundreds of cheap games both portably and on a TV with comparable performance? The fucking Steam Deck. The Steam Deck is right there. You can buy a Steam Deck, buy cheaper games, and have PC gaming's whole ass back catalog. Oh, and you want to play the new Mario Kart? Okay, buy a Switch 2 then. But do you have another $80 to buy the game? Look, if you've been watching Testing Triangles for a while, you know I'm a bit skeptical of new gaming consoles. And it is so incredibly easy to trash Nintendo because the way they operate is so completely detached from reality. They are a company that is so consistently behind their contemporaries in the space in terms of technological advancement, but are so dead set in showing the world that the thing they made is actually really cool and you need to buy it. The Switch 2 will sell well, not because of what it does differently, but because of market factors, like scalpers, artificial scarcity, a tried and true Nintendo staple, and the growing need from parents to buy their kids the new Nintendo. But the price point, I think, is going to push a lot of people to the edge of a decision. $450 is not an attractive price point, especially in today's world. Am I buying a Switch 2? Yes. I have to. This will probably be the last time they let Masahiro Sakurai out of the Smash Bros. Minds to enjoy the time with his son ever again, and I'm going to savor it. And Kirby Air Ride was a very formative game for me growing up, and it only feels right to play the follow-up. Plus, it's a great family machine. Perfect for get-togethers and entertainment, and me being a gaming YouTuber now, it feels like it's basically required if I'm going to keep up with the competition. If anything, it feels more like a business expense at this point, but hey, what can you do? Am I happy with the $80 price tag associated with it? Hell no. But am I happy to finally get a sequel to Kirby Air Ride 20 years later? Yeah, I think I am. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think about the Switch 2 down below. Are you going to get one? What game are you most excited for? I'm really curious to see what you have to say about it. Special thanks goes out to my channel members listed here, and an extra special thanks goes out to my $3 channel member, Cilantro. These epic, absolutely poggers folks help to keep me making discussion videos like this for people to watch and enjoy, and if you want to be up there on screen with them, you can become a channel member by clicking the join button below. Yes, the Monster Hunter video is still coming. Life and work is very, very, very busy at the moment, but it will definitely come out before the end of April. YouTube thinks you'll like these videos, so why not check them out? And as always, this has been Testing Triangles, 1v1 Me City Trial Compact Star only.